Alright, so a response video to Pyrrho, who's made a video response to the argument. Well, I'll just play part of his argument. Part of it just because his video is very good.
Perspective is this one where the brain has grown up. It's like the DNA. Work. I'll make this thing survive. I will help this thing survive. And I will build a brain to help it survive. Oh shit, what's it doing? It's outsmarting me. Yeah, good luck with that. Good fucking luck with that. You are that DNA. You are that.
Yeah, well, you're that's sort of playing a game. All right, so here's the argument is that there's our brain is the product of nature. It's a product of the evolutionary process. Therefore, it's part of the agenda of nature. Brains, big brains, intellect, culture, all that stuff. And I argue that the evidence is that no, it's not the natural tendency. That you could replay the universe. If we can change the permutations, in the Big Bang or wherever, you get to play with the permutations, and where you get to really roll the dice, so to speak, create the first random events or whatever they are. This isn't going to happen. That the human race was an aberrant. It wasn't what nature does, and I would argue that you could run the natural selection game 1,000,000 times, and maybe only one in 1,000,000 times will it go any further than the intelligent monkey. Because we can look at the circumstance of how we acquired our intelligence was really unusual in that we acquired the potential long before we were able to use the potential to its maximum capacity. And we had our brain before we had our books, so to speak, which is sort of backwards from nature's usual creation process, which is incremental gains. So anyway, let's not get into all this brain science stuff. The simple argument is that obviously when we acquired information, intelligence, we are able to apply a different standard. It's no longer natural selection, it's unnatural, it's some other selection, it's intelligent selection that steps outside. It creates a new paradigm, a new plateau, whatever you want to call it, but it's a change in the mechanism. It's not the same kind of evolution that went on for 2 billion years. So when we invent a condom, what our brain has done is it has undone 2 billion years of evolution. It's basically breaking the old tools and now using this new tool to define how this reproduction thing is going to work. And that's a significant difference. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying we can step past a deterministic material universe. I'm not saying our brain is unnatural in some sort of explicit, precise language sense. It's unnatural in the common language sense, where we apply the word natural to things that arise from the crude forces. Intelligence isn't a crude force. It's a very sophisticated force run by very sophisticated rules. Not even, they're simple rules, but they're very demanding. And intelligence works by being reasonable, by being rational. And ours that was demanded of ours in its creation. It wouldn't have worked if it wasn't an accurate modeling tool. And so through its attempt to accurately model the universe, the world it lives in, it has now discovered the truth of its existence, which is its existence is dumber than the end product. The creator is dumber than the machine it invented accidentally, without intent. All right, so the process through natural selection, a computer has been built. Yes, it's been built through our intelligence, through our culture, through our acquiring of knowledge, but the computer is technically a natural item. Because we built it, and because it's made out of natural products. It's a material piece of the universe. But we understand the difference between that thing and a living thing, and these distinctions aren't that complicated. So I think it's a little silly to argue that it's some sort of the mission of the universe to create computers. No. Or the mission of a DNA molecule, the blueprint molecule, and the process of natural selection. So if we limit the definition of nature to natural selection and a DNA molecule, we can definitely see how intelligence just completely breaks that mechanism. Okay, because that mechanism depends on the survival of the fittest defined by these crude rules. We have the capacity to define incredibly sophisticated rules. So let's see if I can find another thought experiment that you'll break, of course, because you never obey the rules of thought experiments. But anyway, let's just say that we had evolved through, we acquired intelligence, and the price of intelligence was a dulling of our sentience. So now we felt less. The highs were less high, and the lows were less low, and less intense and less feeling. And all the other animals, though, were feeling 10 times more than we were, 10 times more intense. Their pain and suffering was 10 times more intense. And we were the ones with diminished senses, in the sense of what we felt, what we were capable of feeling. So it's like they are in a constant state of intense emotional arousal and passion, and we are, dull, mediocre. Just floating along because our intelligence has compromised our sentience. And let's say that was the truth. And we as this sentient organism now, this intelligent one, but sentient, but not dull, we could look at the world now and we could say, well, look, the more important thing is these more feeling creatures. We could logically deduce that it's no longer in our interest to take care of our essence and our being, that our intelligence would be much better suited to taking care of the more important treasure, And so it would be completely a twist of natural selection, of how the DNA molecule works in terms of its selfish gene, for us to be put in that role. It would almost be like the eunuchs, I think that's what they call them, the way they serve, they create the eunuchs to serve the emperors in Japan or something, and so they don't no longer live for themselves. They had no personal passion, and now their passion was, converted into something else's interest. And that's what we would have been, or that's what intelligence would end up being. And so my argument there is just that, intelligence is a profound game changer. And the end result is that it's just going to look for a thing to serve. That's where it does. It's going to look for the truth. And if the truth is lousy and rotten, it's going to have to admit it. And you're going to keep pretending that it's all just some magical, mystical ride, but that's just your presumption. You just assume that it makes sense somehow, that somehow the value equation works out, that the amount of suffering created in the world is worth the satisfied addiction. And then it's quite easy to make the counter argument, and so that's a whole different subject, and you can't disengage that subject by playing some game saying it's all natural. That's just bullshit. Intelligence is different than natural selection. It is different. It changes the game. Yeah, that's probably enough. Yeah, we'll go with that. Anyway, till next time.